So hi Matt, thank you for joining me today. Let's just tell our viewers who you are and what you do and tell us your business.
No, it's great to be on, Oliver. And yeah, I'm Matt Crehan. So I own and run alongside my mum Made to Run, which is a specialist running store in St Helens. I'm also a semi-professional runner as well. Obviously, those two go nice and side by side. So yeah, we sell specialist running shoes, clothing, and the main bit is offer advice and our expertise from my own running career. And my mum was an Olympian in the '88 Olympics and things like that. So obviously got a vast experience herself as well.
So how long have you had the shop for?
So we're just coming up to 2 years in January. That'll be so.
So
Yeah.
obviously COVID has kind of put a stop to everything everybody wants to do. So in terms of the first lockdown back in March, how did your business adapt to the very first lockdown?
Yeah, so we just celebrated the end of year one. We got through the year one of being a first, new business starting out, and we were looking forward to growth and expansion in year two. And then, yeah, March came around, lockdown hit. So the shop was closed. Furloughed my mum at the time, so I could carry on doing sort of website work. So the first couple of weeks of lockdown, I just went back. The website was there. My background for the last 10 years have been digital marketing, so website, social media, everything like that. So it had always had a website. It had always been functional. You could always buy the products on there, but it had been a little slow, and I never had the time to fully sort of get on there and do all the finishing touches to it that I wanted to. So I thought, right, okay, first couple of weeks of lockdown, let's make sure it's all moving really quickly, everything's really smooth and stuff like that, and let's get let people sort of start buying online and things like that. So we had a couple sales going through, but a lot of the stuff I was getting was obviously a lot of people were told, go out and exercise. It was the one thing you could do. You could go out for an hour a day and exercise. Obviously, then it became unlimited. You can go out and exercise. And one of the easiest things to do is to go and run, because it's a decent pair of shoes on your feet and straight out your door and off you go. Obviously, cycling, there are a lot of cyclists as well, and cycling stores were allowed to stay open during lockdown. Whereas specialist running stores weren't. There is a petition at the moment actually for specialist running stores to be allowed to stay open this lockdown, but by the time anything gets done with it, I think we'll probably be out of lockdown by then. But obviously, yeah. So what I then did was we spent a lot of time on social media, just answering questions about running tips and advice. I was on Zoom with people and on the phone, and just sort of talking. New people getting out running who maybe exercised already, but we just did stuff in the gym. And so they were in like just gym shoes, which are great for gym work, where the floor's a little bit softened, so you jump in and things like that. And a shoe needs to be slightly firmer in its cushioning, so that it takes, you feel that contact ground force as you jump around and move left to right and things, do different exercises. But obviously, when you're out on the tarmac, it's a bit firmer and it's a bit harder. You need a softer sort of shoe, otherwise your joints start to feel those aches and pains, and that's what a lot of people who were sort of usually fit and active, but were in the gym, suddenly started finding when they were outside. They found they enjoyed running outside, but it was quite hard work on the joints and things, and because they were running in sort of gym shoes. So yeah, we just sort of offered a lot of advice and stuff, and then lockdown came to an end eventually, and we reopened, and it was crazy because everyone had taken up running, and everyone wanted advice and wanted running shoes, and obviously they had little bits and pieces online and stuff, or they bought shoes from online stores and stuff like that, without having the advice and like a gait analysis or anything like that done. And they were getting pains and aches and stuff, so they wanted to come in and get that done in the store, and then find a shoe that was going to be suitable and fit their running. So yeah, the first week we turned over more than we'd turned over any other week since being open. Actually, then within the first 3 days we did that week. So that was in June. So it sort of made up for having been closed for at least one of the months of being closed. It sort of hit pretty much a month's figure within 3 days. We were then obviously started to ease down a little bit as everyone got over that mad rush of getting out first. But it still kept up pretty busy, and people obviously were enjoying being out, being active. We had pretty much a beautiful summer, to be fair. Started winding down a little bit, I suppose, at the end of August, but it was a really nice summer, so it was great to get out and run. And yeah, it kept us busy with people wanting to be out and exercise, and obviously supporting local businesses as well, which was a big thing of coming back. So that was great.
Yeah. So in terms of all the restrictions, then how did you find your business had to adapt within obviously coming back out of lockdown? You know, with the social distancing, the face mask. How have you found that in store? How has that adapted?
Yeah. So obviously all clothing, any clothing that was tried on, had to be put aside for 48 hours. To put that aside. So that was a bit frustrating at times, because we tend to only have one or two items of each size and things like that. So obviously suddenly, we might only have one item and it was stuck in the back for 48 hours, sort of thing. In terms of shoes, we couldn't do that with shoes. It wasn't possible. So we had sanitizer, shoe sanitizer and things like that. And we just basically sanitizing them after people tried them on. But people just, the business was selling shoes, and we only had one size in each shoe pretty much, usually, being a small independent store, and get them through from the stock. So, and then, obviously the guidance about masks, wearing masks came in. First, it came in for the customers having to wear them, and then obviously us working in the store. So my mum had been, the reason she was furloughed was she was shielding. So she couldn't do anything anyway, where I was doing a bit of deliveries and collection and stuff like that. During lockdown, she couldn't do anything. And then after we came out of lockdown, she was still having to shield until August, when she was told she could return to work and things like that. So she then returned, but obviously was doing a lot more work in the back of the store, sort of just getting the shoes ready for me and things like that, rather than being customer facing. So it was quite a bit of a different role for her when she returned. And then we had face visors done by my fiance's father. He was producing loads of face visors and giving them out to the hospitals and stuff like that during the lockdown period. So we had them in store, ready to use. So my mum always used hers as soon as she returned. I started using mine once. We got to a point where we were told, actually people working in stores should wear a mask as well, or some sort of face protection. But I'd always wanted to wear a visor, because I know we have a couple of customers that come in who are deaf, and obviously lip read and things like that when they're talking about the shoes and stuff with us. And with my fiance being visually impaired, I'm always quite keyed into trying to be as accessible as possible in the store. So I wanted the face visor rather than a mask to cover up the mouth and things like that, with them in mind, whether they came in or not. They did, well, one of them did anyway. But so we started doing that, and then enforcing that. It was because we're an independent store and a specialist sort of store. Our customers usually know us quite well, or know of us and things like that, and they come in there for a specific reason. So that generally they'd have their masks on. Sometimes they'd obviously start to come through the door, see us reaching for our visors and go, "Oh, wait there," and run back to the car or something like that to get their masks and stuff. But it was never really an issue with really having to enforce that and stuff like that. And then we had like the sort of the posters that sort of said how we'd done our risk assessment and things like that for reopening and stuff in the store. And because it's quite a small store as well, we didn't have that whole issue with putting like placements down and saying, keep 2 meters apart and things like that, because we don't have that mad rush of people. The only time we did, it was like a Saturday, and I had a booking system put in place. I researched while I was in lockdown, and people, other stores were talking about it. So I found that, we put that in place, and basically the first week we reopened, I had appointments every day, and that was how it was done as we first opened. But as it started to ease down a little bit, I said, just come when you want during the week. But Saturdays, we had a booking system for Saturdays, just to keep that, make sure it was, we weren't getting 20 people all turning up at once and stuff like that. So that was a new thing, and actually it's something we're going to keep going forward, the booking system, just because it's a nicety. It's not, we always say it's not necessary for the people to book an appointment with us, but obviously if they want to, with there being 2 of us and things like that, we can do. And I'm also planned on sort of utilising it to sort of do out of our normal hours sort of time, because we have changed our opening hours since we came back. So we used to be open Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays to 10 till 5, and Wednesdays we used to do a late night, because we used to have events and stuff like that, which we haven't been able to do. So we used to be open 12 till 8 on a Wednesday, and then Sunday we were 12 till 4. So when we reopened, it was just me working in the shop. My mum was still furloughed and shielding. So I just swapped the days basically to 10 till 3, because one, the schools were still closed at the time, and my fiance is a teacher, so I thought, well, it just fits with going to work at the same time that she goes to work, and then, well, she's there a bit earlier, but and then come home. So yeah, they were our opening hours. When we reopen in December, I think we'll go back to normal opening hours. But what we'll do, because Monday's actually been quite a nice day for us, but it was our sort of day off in the week, in the pre-lockdown world. So I think the plan is basically to have that appointment system just working on a Monday. So if someone really wants to come on a Monday, it's the only day they can do. They can book an appointment for Mondays. Other than that, we'll have days off and relax on a Monday a little bit after working the weekend. So
yeah. So obviously you, outside of work and business, you do a lot of training and running yourself. So how have you adapted to like gyms closing and the whole event world that obviously is no longer here right now? How have you kind of personally adapted to that?
Yeah, so I think the first lockdown, I dealt with it quite well. I had been training for the London Marathon. It was going to be my debut marathon distance, and I'd been aiming to try and get as close to the Olympic qualifying standard as possible in that, for the Olympics that would have been this year as well. So yeah, London got cancelled, I think the second week of lockdown, or just before lockdown. Yeah, I think it was just a week before lockdown, it got cancelled. So that was like, okay, well, there's my marathon gone. But I've been training well, things like that. So I carried on training, and on London Marathon Day, I actually went out and did a marathon round. I ran to my mum's in Ashton, over into Wigan, and then back through Billinge and Rainford. So a little bit of a hilly one, but I did that just to, one, do the distance, two, just push the pace a little bit and see what sort of time I could do, just making sure I was doing it comfortable enough that I didn't end up in some sort of danger and collapsing or something like that when the NHS was already being stressed enough. But just to get over it and do that run and stuff like that. So we did that, and then there was no races on the calendar whatsoever. Jane, my fiance, was training for the Paralympics, so we were trying to adapt for that. Obviously, that went out the window with the Olympics, probably a month or so into lockdown. But obviously, it just got moved back to next year. So any time she could get in this year, any times I could run this year would still count and be standards and things like that. So I was going longer, training for a marathon. There was a marathon expected to be in mid-October. It was being set up as like an elite marathon with a 2:40 cut-off time. So I put that in my diary and built a plan for that, which included a race, which I actually got to do when some races did come back, which was over in Ireland. I got to race against Mo Farah, which was a great experience, a great race to be involved in alongside him. But that was very different because it was a waves sort of setup. So there was, again, it was elites only. It was meant to be a mass participation event, but they just cut it to the elites. So they had the women's race, which set off an hour before the men. And there was about 20 women in that race, and that was the max sort of numbers in it. And then we had our race, and there was two elite men's races, but two separate waves, a wave A and a wave B. And there's about 15 seconds between each wave, and there was 20 of us in each wave. So yeah, I lined up with the likes of Mo Farah, Mark Scott, who just broke the British record for 5,000 metres about a month earlier, and a couple of other great guys as well to race against. And we set off on that half marathon course in Antrim. So that was great fun, great to get a race in. I got 2 races in the whole lockdown, a 5K where I suffered an asthma attack and collapsed at 3K into it. So that wasn't as good. So it was difficult with the races, and there's a couple of the races that went on that I saw people run good times in. Jade managed to get a couple track races in. she wasn't happy with them, but she managed to fit them in at the end of the season and stuff like that, which was at least great to sort of get back to that sort of thing. I think she actually had a race the week before the track actually reopened in St Helens in Sutton. So she raced on the track first before even actually getting a chance to actually train on the track that year because it had been closed. So it was very different year in terms of athletics and training and things, that sort of stuff.
Yeah. And then obviously now we are back into our second lockdown. Again, how have you adapted going into the second lockdown then in terms of business? Have you gone back online? Are you going to go back to your booking system when we come out of it, or how are you going to control that?
Yeah, so yeah, we've gone back online at the moment. Click and collect, deliveries. I've been running up and down streets with shoes in bags and stuff like that, drop it, in the boxes and stuff to drop off with people. My mum's done the odd delivery in her car, and we've done click and collect from the store. It's a lot quieter than it would be obviously if we were open, because we're not providing that sort of service side of things that we can do when we're open.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still doing virtual gait analysis, so getting people to video, just talking them through how to do the gait analysis video, getting them to do it themselves, send it to me for me to analyse in the software that we use, and then sort of provide them with some suggestions on shoes, ideally shoes on our website that I provide them, direct them towards and stuff like that. But at the same time, we're, like we've always said, we're service based and we want people to be in the right shoes. So if we've not got shoes in their size and things like that, then I've just suggested shoes that are going to be suitable for them that they can find elsewhere. I'd rather them be in the right sort of shoe, and hopefully when they're in the next pair of shoes, that'll make them come back to us anyway for the second pair. So that's mostly what we've been doing currently. It's a funny thing actually, because we literally just year two, we were always planning on buying the property that we're in. We're currently leasing it. But as the year went through this year, I realised that we'd actually outgrown the shop we were in. It was actually a little too small for us now. And there was always a lot of things I wanted to do with the store. I wanted like a little coffee shop area for people just to relax in and stuff, people to meet up after runs and things like that, and relax, showers and change rooms.
Social side of it.
Yeah, that real social side, that real community side. I wanted the shop to be a real hub for the runners of the town and things, and from further afield. So yeah, we sort of outgrown the store, and because of how lockdown had actually ended up going and things like that, with a lot of people getting out and being active, we actually found ourselves in a place where we could look for a bigger property and actually to purchase a bigger property. So there was a couple of properties we were looking at, one of them being the Pets Emporium store, which is next door to where we are, which is Dave, who's the landlord there, or who's the owner there, is our landlord currently. We had just made an offer on that property when we went back into lockdown for the second one. So it was really frustrating in the fact that we were sort of, ready to sort of move, expand and grow sort of thing, which we still are, and we're still moving ahead with that. And hopefully, that all goes through and we'll come out of lockdown with better news on that sort of thing, fingers crossed. But to be sort of thinking of doing that at the same time where we were going to be shut again for another month and stuff, and hopefully we'll make enough this month just to get through and all that, and pay off sort of stock bills and stuff like that, like invoices coming in for stock and things, and then we'll hopefully open back up in December. And I'm expecting a similar sort of rush, one, because people have been locked down and not been able to get out and buy shoes, but two, just because it's Christmas month and Christmas season, and obviously everyone's buying presents and stuff. So I'm hoping that will boost us there going through December and into January in the new year and things like that.
So in terms of you being now in year two, and obviously your business plan for year two, how are you going to adapt in obviously you're wanting to expand, you're wanting to go and get a bigger kind of unit. How are you going to adapt to restrictions and obviously lockdown in now your year two business plan?
Yeah, so I think when we reopen, we'll follow pretty much a similar structure to what we've been doing after we reopened after lockdown number one. So, you know, the appointment system will be there. We'll sort of see how busy it looks over the first couple of days, whether that becomes sort of an enforced, you know, appointment booking only for the week or so, or whether it's just, again, that sort of Saturday sort of system bit. And whether, and you know, I've always sort of felt that I live literally a mile's run away from the shop currently. You know, I've always said if customers can't get there because they're working and stuff like that, but they know what shoe, or they've already tried the shoe and they want to come back and pick it up and stuff like that, I'll happily just run up and do that anyway. Or, you know, local deliveries as we're doing currently sort of thing. I'll run out and drop off a shoe within a certain radius of me and things like that. Just gets my mileage in, to be fair. It's more of a benefit to me than anything else. Yeah, I mean, obviously in terms of the hopefully the new store going forward when that comes around, obviously the idea of like a little coffee bit in there and stuff like that is going to be slightly paused until you know, restrictions on that's eased a little bit and people can get out and meet people and things like that. Because we used to do a Sunday run from the store. There used to be about 10, 15 of us on a good week sort of thing, and go out and do 15 to 20 miles. We were all marathon training. And then we'd all come back into the shop and sit, and we had a little coffee machine in there, and we just have a coffee and everyone would just have a chat, and one of the lads would always lead people in stretches and stuff like that. So obviously that's not been able to be done whatsoever since the whole lockdown thing started. I think we still met up in numbers of 6 to do runs from the shop, but we've not had the nice sort of social coffee afterwards. But yeah, so that bit will have to be slightly slowed down in its process of building that little coffee store bit to the shop and things like that. But I mean, yeah, I think like the procedures that we've got in place will just carry on. It will be a bigger store, so depending on how long the 2 meters apart sort of thing applies and stuff like that, we might need to put the stickers down and stuff in that store if we do that and things. But yeah, we're looking forward to hopefully being able to get in that store and have that reopening and stuff like that. Ideally for our second birthday in January, at the end of Jan would be nice, but we'll see how the time frames go on that.
Yeah, amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on and chatting to me today. You know, obviously it's been amazing to finally virtually meet you.
Yeah.
And obviously I wish you well in business, and let's hope everything goes back to normal as soon as possible.
See, fingers crossed, yeah.
Well, I'll see you soon when we're back out of lockdown.
Yeah, definitely, Oliver.